Hey, welcome back to the Group Project Podcast, episode number 45. I have none other than Stacy Monette here with me today. Stacy is the principal at Paul Baird Middle School in Belchertown, Massachusetts. Am I
Actually, it's in
correct or
Ludlow. It's in
okay?
Ludlow. Yes,
I should have asked you that before the
that's
show and
okay.
I
Very close, neighboring towns.
Okay. All right. All right. As long as the two towns don't like hate each other, I'm okay then, right?
No, I was the assistant in Belchertown, so you're fair. It's good.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you joining me tonight. And I was kind of telling you before the show, we've had a lot of Midwest focus on the show, a lot of Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois. We're starting to kind of broaden out a little bit. We've been hitting the East Coast a little bit, hitting New England. Last week we had Peter DeWitt on the show, author, keynote speaker, and before winter break, I was like, okay, who am I going to bring on in January? I want to hit the East Coast a little bit. And I did a Google search for like principal of the year across the United States. And I came across Stacy's name. She was the middle school Massachusetts principal of the year in 2020. And you're laughing, but that's a pretty cool honor.
It is. It just makes me laugh because I still pinch myself. Seriously, like it's still surreal. And every time somebody says, I'm like, it's wild.
That's so cool. So we're gonna dig into that a little bit. We're gonna talk a little bit about that. But I'm just gonna read a few more things from your bio, and then I'm gonna let you kind of take it from there for a few minutes. So before you start, you were the principal at Baird Middle School starting in 2016. And then before that, an assistant principal for 9 years, it sounds like. I think that's what you were referring to.
Mm-hmm.
And then a special education teacher in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? And then also there in where you live at Belchertown. So
yes.
And then you're currently kind of a big thing you're doing right now is you're working on the doctorate, correct?
I am. Yes, I am.
Very cool. So you are busy. And you've got a 16-year-old at home who just got the driver's license, driving to McDonald's tonight.
my life just freed up a little bit.
So there's a lot going on. So, hey, I've talked a lot these first couple minutes. Let's talk to you. Let's just maybe share your educational experience, your background, how you got to this point, and then we'll just go from there. So I'll hand it off to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And I'm so excited that you just mentioned my name and Peter DeWitt all in the same sentence. Like I'm fanning right now. Actually, and after listening to his interview, my background is a little bit similar story to his. So I'm shocked at that. I started out at a community college in central New York. I was 17, super young, landed there. I became a physical therapist assistant. And I think when Peter DeWitt talked about his GPA the first semester, mine was probably lower, and I'm not even going to say that out loud. I then moved to Arizona State. I moved to Arizona and applied to Arizona State to transfer in. And I've never said this publicly, but I did not get in because my GPA was so low. And I wrote an appeal letter, and I believe Peter DeWitt mentioned that too. So I wrote an appeal letter to Arizona State and said, please, 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 I don't want to do physical therapy the rest of my life. I took a class called Intro to Special Education at one of the community colleges in Scottsdale, and fell in love with it and knew like life-changing, literally life-changing. So Arizona State said, we'll let you in under the notion that you are on academic probation. And I graduated with a 3.89 and never looked back. One of those education was a life-changing. It was exactly where I needed to be. Special ed was my love. I then moved to New Jersey, started teaching there, loved it. And then my husband was placed in a job here and we moved here. And then immediately when I started here, knew I wanted to get into, actually started my admin degree in New Jersey, ended up getting pregnant with my oldest daughter, moved here, continued on. And then ironically came back as the assistant principal where I was a special ed teacher. So that's kind of in a short story, the fact that, like, I'm so happy that Peter DeWitt shared his story, because I was like, okay, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
So non-traditional, but really the best decision I've ever made. Like, education is my love. Middle school is my passion. I say it. I call them the range of the strange. I stole that from a special ed director from years ago, and it is the range of the strange. You never know what you're going to get on any given day, which kind of matches my personality, as I kind of need that fulfillment of, like, okay, what are we tackling today? So yeah, I stayed in the assistant principal position probably longer than I needed to, but I was happy. My kids were in the district, and then I jumped, and I haven't looked back.
So you're right. It's just uncanny how similar your story
Right?
is to
Yeah,
Peter. So if you haven't listened to Peter's episode, I'm not just saying this, like it was a really good episode last
it
week.
was a
So,
really good episode. I'm glad he shared his story, because I was like, it's very similar.
and we broke the news here, never shared before, did not get into Arizona State. So
I
if you're
did
out
not.
there,
I've
it,
only shared that story with a select few students who have come in and, have that classic, like, come on, Mrs. Monette, you were probably a straight A student. I was like, oh, sit down. Let me share a little story with you. So yes, I loved Peter's story. It inspired me.
so let's go back. I always like to, you've been doing administration for like 13 years, 14 years, something like that. Take us back to Miss Monette as the first year assistant principal. What are so, and I asked the same question to Peter last week. It turned out pretty good. What were some of like the high points? Like what are some of the things you just nailed right off the gate? And then what were maybe some of your struggles? What you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Share some of
Okay.
that.
No pressure here. All right. So my what was really tough for me is I walked out and I was a teacher there. I was a special ed teacher, and basically walked back in with really good friends and colleagues who I had taught with for a few years. And I was now, basically their boss. I was now, I went to the dark side and I was admin. So, I'm going to start with the challenge. The challenge was just getting them to believe in me. Like, I haven't forgotten, I was one of you. Like, I'm going to have your back. Like, I'm going to do the best I can to make sure everything is equal and fair. I think probably one of the best things I did is, and I still do this to this day, is the principal and I, even if we disagreed, we always disagreed behind closed doors. And it was kind of like, I've got your back, you've got my back. Nobody's ever going to see any different, but we're going to have our conversations behind closed doors. And my assistant principal and I still, to this day, that, we have a moment, we call it like shoulder to shoulder talk. And she stands one way and I stand the other with the shoulder. And I'm like, that's never going to happen again. Nobody's ever going to see it. We're going to talk about it here, and nobody's going to know any different. And I think that was a very good way to start out, is knowing that I would always support him, publicly in front of everybody. But if I had an issue, it was behind closed doors.
Mhm. So our audience is a lot of current administrators, aspiring administrators. You talked about us going from that teacher role to the assistant principal role. And I know I'm kind of put you on the spot here. And if you can't think of any perfect example, that's fine. But that difficulty of being a peer to someone and then being their boss. And I don't know if you can remember any story or anything where you found that difficult, where it was like, oh, I used to be a peer of this person, and now maybe I have to have a difficult conversation with them. Does that ring a bell at all? Can you think of anything where
So,
that might have happened?
you know what, the one thing that pops in my head right away is evaluating these teachers. So now I
Mm,
have to go in, and I think once they realize, like, it wasn't a gotcha moment. I'm not looking to zing you on an evaluation. I'm looking for us to grow together here. And one of the best examples, I used to co-teach with one of these teachers, and she's a phenomenal math teacher, still to this day,
mhm,
phenomenal math teacher. And when I went in, um, and evaluated her, she was like, I'm not sure if I agree on this. And I said, well, why don't you take the rubric home? I want you to go over it piece by piece. Come back, we'll meet again, and let's go over it
mhm,
together. And in the end, we did kind of meet each other halfway. And it was
mhm.
probably one of the best experiences ever, because I learned something, she learned something. And in the end, we both grew.
Sure.
So but again, I was in her classroom as her co-teacher.
Oh
Um,
gosh.
yeah, but you know what? And I walked away from that building. Still, people, I think, I want to say people are respecting me for that.
Mhm.
I'm not looking to hang anybody on an evaluation ever or on anything. I'm only looking to get people to grow. Um, yeah.
So some people are kind of mixed on whether or not they should try to make that jump within their building. Clearly, it seemed like it was a pretty successful jump for you. Like you wouldn't tell anybody to shy away from it. Is that correct?
I
Or
wouldn't.
or tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Looking back, well, I guess I should back up. I left for another assistant principal position for 3 months. Um,
Oh.
so, so I came back immediately on me taking another position. They ended up, they call it pink slip. They pink slipped the current assistant principal that was there. So I knew for 3 months that the position was going to be opening up
Oh,
in
okay.
in the spring. So when I came back, I already had like a brief 3 months of being an admin, which helped me
Unique.
a little bit.
Yeah.
um, I definitely think it doesn't hurt people to go out behind what's familiar of the four
Okay.
walls. Yeah,
Okay.
I will be honest. I survived. It wasn't always easy. It was also the town I live in. So I kind of
Oh
got
gosh.
double whammied.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not a terrible
absolutely.
experience, but you kind of have to fight harder to know, like, I'm in this for the right reasons. I'm here to support you, but I don't think it hurts to go look. The grass isn't always greener on the other side, but sometimes it is. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's Yeah.
Sure.
I'm kind of
Absolutely.
50-50 on
Okay.
that answer.
And it's just always interesting because uh, all these different people we've interviewed, some of them have moved up within the organization or the district. Some of them have gone, moved different states, moved different regions of the country to take that first admin job. So it's just interesting hearing those different perspectives and
I think
people.
if you stay in a district, you have to fight harder. I think if I could sum that up, I think you have to fight harder to prove yourself because they only know you as a teacher, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, yep. I totally get that. Hey, I've been following you on Twitter for the last, not a long time, but a month and a half or so. And, I kind of, before we set up the interview, I kind of scrolled back in your timeline and it just seems like you got some cool things going on in your building. My question to you is, what are one or two really cool things that you do in your school that you would recommend to others?
So actually the two things that I think I really talk about quite a bit, and if I were to ever, sit down with somebody moving into a first year principal position, right away I got, and both of these sound kind of silly, but I got matching shirts for the entire staff, year one, and we've done this every single year. The first year there, I had the art teacher design the logo. We decided on a theme. You'll see my hashtag probably on my Twitter, We Are Baird. So this is my 5th year in the building. We've always been We Are Baird. And I didn't buy, the PTO bought t-shirts for every single adult in the building. The custodians, the cafeteria workers, the office workers,
Mhm.
staff, paras, everybody has a shirt. And we pick days where we wear the shirts, and days of faculty meetings, we all wear our shirts. So every year now for 5 years, and it's always a big deal of like, what's the shirt going to look like? And as we go on, I'm like, every year I start thinking, okay, how can I redesign a shirt? We have long sleeves, we have collared, we have regular t-shirts, but it just puts everybody on a level playing field. And when the students come in and see every single adult in the building all dressed alike, it's pretty powerful. Like, it's one of those, it just makes you feel good. You think of like every month it's a pep rally, like people walk in. So that's something little. It really doesn't cost the PTO a lot of money, and the teachers love it. Another thing that I did that kind of became a life of its own is my first year when I took this position, I was actually, I spent a lot of time in Cape Cod, and I was sitting around a campfire at the Cape. And I was saying to a bunch of friends, like, how am I going to prove to them, like, I'm in it, I'm staying, I'm committed. And I was like, what, I think it started out as like a joke. I'm like, I think I'm going to get them engagement rings. And they're like, what? And around the fire, I ordered 200 plastic engagement rings And on the first day there, standing up in front of them at the staff meeting, I handed them all an engagement ring. And at the time, they probably, no, they all say, they're like, we thought you were as wacky as can be. I'm like, this is to show you my commitment. This is my engagement to you. I am in this and I'm not going anywhere. And every year I've given them a token ever since. And that token represents what our vision is for the entire school year. So this year I gave them all little hands because it's all hands on deck. Last year I gave them trees because it was all about growth, personal growth, student growth. Let me see if I can remember them all. I did an anchor and a compass once. No, an anchor and a helm. Because it was part of leadership. You're either anchoring the ship or you're steering the ship. Gosh, what was the second one? Oh, the second year it was keys. I gave them all a key because they were the key to somebody's success. And then we plan out the entire year based around that little token. So what's really cool is these teachers put it on their lanyards. And so they have all 5 tokens now hanging from the lanyard. So it's silly and cheesy. And, teachers like silly and cheesy, but it's pretty powerful when we constantly go back to that. Like all hands on deck, I have talked about now since September. And it is truly one of those years, especially now, where it is all hands on deck. It's the only way we're getting through this. And I say this, we're only getting through this together, like everybody in, all hands on deck. So
cool. That's great. I love those examples. I remember reading that engagement ring. I don't know I don't know if it was when you were interviewed for your principal of the year. If you referenced that, does that sound right? I know I read that
I've
somewhere.
talked about it a couple times because
okay.
It's one of those things looking back, which probably, at the time was kind of like a joke, but ended up being one of the best decisions I've ever made. Like it was completely off the cuff. Like I'm buying engagement rings for everybody. And my sisters were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing it.
Now, were these, I'm kind of curious, were these pretty gaudy looking? I mean, were they talking 2 or 3 carat looking things? Were these huge?
So they were, it was so funny because even, I have a lot of male teachers. And so even the male teachers were like, oh yeah, we're getting a ring. It was probably like a 1 carat.
Okay. All right.
Give me your address. I'll send you one.
All right. I might have to take you up on that. I got to check this out. That's impressive. So, but you're right. Just and I love how you said you keep coming back to it. Cause I'm sure you're just like me. Like I hate when leaders will start something at the beginning of the year and emphasize it and then never come back to it, especially if it's a token like that. Like to me, it just seems like you got to keep coming back to it to reinforce what that vision is. So
my pet peeve is 0 follow through. Makes me crazy. So yes. So the teachers know, and this is all like, I usually come up with the token, but the teachers come up with the themes for the month, or for the year, which we celebrate every month. So yeah, it's been good. It's pretty powerful.
So let's shift gears just slightly. Clearly, to be successful, you got to make good use of your time at work. Do you have one professional practice or habit you do during the day you would recommend to others?
I'm glad you said habit because I'm not sure if it would be considered a professional practice. So when I was a teacher in Belchertown, I had this principal who I love, Gary McCauley. If he's ever watching this, I got a card from him when I got principal of the year and I was like, ah, and he used to do his walk around every single morning. And he followed the same path and he walked around. And so when I became the assistant principal, at Jabesh Brook in Belchertown, I did the same walk around and teachers would always know where to catch me if anything would come up. And I would learn more on that walk around. And I did it for 9 years. I did the walk around. Gary McCauley did it for however many years he was there. As the principal, I remember saying at the first staff meeting, so, just so you know, I do a walk around. They're all like, what? And the building that I went into as principal was much bigger than the assistant where I was assistant principal. And I had one teacher after the meeting say, let me show you the path. I want to show you the path that you can take. And he walked me around and it's still to this day, the same path that I follow around. And my secretary knows that I will be out in the building, usually for 20 minutes. And I walk around and teachers know exactly what time I'm going to be passing their classrooms. And it's also a time where we do a walk and talk in the morning. So it's a time that I can walk around with kids and I can have eyes on kids. It is, and I will say this every day, it is my favorite 20 minutes of the day in my building. It gets me out, it gets me talking. I can set the mood. It puts me in a good mood. It's great. I'm glad I continued it because I think it's important that staff know that I'm there and I'm checking in, and I get lots of good morning, Mrs. Monette. Hello, Mrs. Monette. How are you doing? Yeah. So thank you, Mr. McCauley. I'm hoping he watches this.
So am I correct in thinking like everything else that it might come up during that time, unless it's a huge emergency, you're saying, hey, secretary, you're telling the office staff, like, you take care of it. You know, I'm doing my walk around, correct?
If a parent is there to see me, they wait. And
Okay.
they'll say she's doing her walk around. My secretary is very good about saying, you know what, she'll be back when she's finished with her walk around. Yeah,
Great. Okay.
it's
Okay.
it's it's nice.
Now, is there any, I love this stuff and people like hearing these little, like, here's my routine. Here's my daily practice. Is there anything else that you do during the day that might be a little bit, either you found to be impactful or might be something that other leaders don't necessarily do?
So there's something that I need to do more of. And the times that I do it is the impromptu phone calls home, that a student, does something, or, caught being good. And I bring him down and say, let's call your parent. That is powerful. And I don't do it enough. I get on a roll where I do it, and then, something happens, or I need to really keep that at the forefront, to just reach out and say to teachers, let me know who's having a good day today, or let me know who's aced a test, let's call home. Parents go crazy over that, absolutely crazy over that, because as a parent, who doesn't want a good phone call home? It's one of my favorite pictures on my Twitter from years ago was a boy who's calling home, and his mom is crying, and he's like, I've never gotten to make a good phone call home. It's like, it's awesome.
So speaking of Twitter pictures, I've been kind of, as we've been talking, I scrolled back a little bit. I wanted to see these "We Are Baird" t-shirts. And I gotta admit, those are pretty nice looking. The maroon, is that
Yes.
what? And you got
Yes.
some, I mean, you got like you said, a bunch of different styles. Like the ladies are wearing some V-necks, the guys are wearing t-shirts. I like
Well,
that. So
as
go
we
ahead.
get going in the years, the staff gets a little pickier. So this year I gave them a choice. They could do the crew neck or V-neck, but we did do long sleeve, and I made them go a little bit different material, which they didn't like at first, but then some have admitted they really like the material. So yeah,
It looks like it's versatile. They can wear it in the winter too. It's got the long,
yes.
and then a couple ladies got it pulled up, so it could be in the fall or the spring. So very cool. I like your thinking there. That's great. So,
It's
okay,
all
let's
about
talk.
fashion. It's all
It
about
is.
fashion.
It is. It is. No, I told we could talk for a good half an hour. We think the same way here. We get the nice t-shirts. So,
Right. Right.
um, so let's talk about the earning the principal of the year title. And I know you seem like a very modest person, but I'm just kind of curious. What was the process like? What did you think when you were awarded? You mentioned a trip to Washington, D.C., I believe. So do you want to,
That Yeah, I'll
am
explain
I
that.
getting
But go
those
ahead.
stories right? Again, here I said, like, sometimes I get the stories mixed up if we talk before the show, but
That's
maybe just
okay.
talk a little bit about just what that award has been like.
So you get nominated. I don't know how it works in other states, but here you get nominated, and like one day I got an email, and basically said somebody's nominated you for principal of the year. And so I thought it was my assistant principal. So she comes in. I was like, "Did you do this?" She was like, "No, but I wish I would have. Like, this is awesome." And then you have the choice to either say, thanks or no thanks. And I honestly looked at it like, I don't know if I want to do this. And she's like, "Oh no, you're doing this. I'm writing this up." And there's a lot of legwork on the part of the staff and parents and students, and you have to find all these people that have to write like nice things about you, so it's a little stressful. And then it's embarrassing. I mean, it's a little bit like, you know um my assistant principal is amazing. She's been the assistant principal in the building for 22 years, so that's remarkable. So for me to come on knowing she's done it for 22 years, knowing that she does not want the position, she's very happy in the AP role. So then we had a Zoom interview, and at the time it was in the middle of COVID, and of course any administrator across America is literally like, I can't do this. I was so relaxed in it that I was like, this is the least thing on my mind right now. And I remember just saying, like, this is what it is, and I was very like casual. And then they called me the next day, and I was in the living room with my son, and they're like, "Hey, we just want to tell you, like, you've won principal of the year." And I was like, what? And I remember I got off the phone and my son, who's like 6'3", picks me up and spins me around and we're dancing and crying. And it just like, just knowing, like, I grew up in Northern New York. I shared that with you before. I was small town, K to 12 all in one building. And, now knowing the story, like I didn't get into Arizona State, and now I'm like, I just won this. Like, this is unbelievable. It's still shocking to me. But what the most like amazing part for me was it put my building has had, like, my first year we lost a student to a drowning. We've had floods, we've had, like, it's always kind of like something big is happening at Baird, and this has just put Baird in the limelight. Like, I have an amazing staff, and I know other administrators do that, but like say that, but I have an amazing staff. And for me to be able to have a platform to brag about them, and I've been able to do it for, months now, is like, and I've said over and over again, is this is not a Stacy award. This is a Baird award. I mean, we are like, when I started at Baird, and I've talked about this with other interviews, is they talked about the Baird family. I'm like, what are you talking about, the Baird family? And it took me a while to realize, like, it's truly a family. It's hard to describe, but it's one of those that they build you up. The community of Ludlow is not looking to catch anybody up. They're like, you're going to screw up and they're going to be there to help you. And that's kind of how it is in our building is, we're all going to screw up, but as long as people are there to support you and move you forward. And, I said, speed bump, get over it, move on. And this, it's been so amazing to celebrate this. I mean, COVID's put a little damper in it, but I was supposed to go to Washington, D.C. for it. The trip to Washington, D.C. before was for our state organization. And that was awesome. I got to go there and advocate for the principal position, but I did miss my, big reception this year for principal
Ah,
there, but it's
shoot.
fine. They did a great job. They did a virtual ceremony. My mom got to watch it in New York. It was good, but it's not the same. But it's been fun. This has been fun. The recognition is a little bit like and I laugh because I tell my girlfriends, you feel like you've won a pageant, because they're like, oh, you have to show up for here and you have to show up for here. And I was like, okay, yeah.
And you're getting random people from Iowa saying, hey, let's do a podcast.
It's nice to be able to share, like, our story, like share
Sure.
Baird's story. It's a special place. And I feel like I said to my assistant principal, had they contacted me year 3 and said, you've been nominated, I would have said, no, thanks. I wasn't ready. Like, I wasn't ready. But that 4th year, like, I had hit some tough situations, and I'm like, you know what? I've earned this. We've earned this. Like, we need to do this. So, yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I know it's always a little awkward sharing how you win awards. I get that, but you actually you tied into the next question pretty well there. You said year 3, I wasn't ready. So my question was, what advice do you have for aspiring administrators looking back on your being a principal for the last 5 years and then being an admin for the last 13, 14 years? What piece of advice do you have for aspiring administrators?
This, it's one of those that you look at it, and so many people, and I'm sure they say it to you too, so many people are like, why would you want to do that? You have to look for those moments. And I mean, if you see on I think it's on my Twitter, like, bio, that I look for those inspirations every single day. I mean, I have a daily calendar next to my toothbrush that has, life's daily instructions. That's how I start my morning. It's a quick little, sentence that gives you a motivational quote. Um, I think as an administrator, you have to look for, it's not going to be great every single day, but honestly, if you're doing your job right, you're going to have more shining moments than not. I think you have to always look for the positives. I do. I think you have to, like, when I get stressed, I'm either disappearing into the hallways, I'm going to the gym class, I'm hanging out with the ladies in the cafeteria. Like, I'm finding my moments to go, like, and I'll say to my secretary, I need to I need to go walk the building. Because you're always going to find somebody that's going to put you in a good mood. You're always going to find somebody that's going to kind of flip it around. You're always going to have those parents that sometimes complain. You're always going to have a teacher who maybe doesn't do something that you want them to do. But for people going into the profession, it's not terrible. It's what you make of it. It's, you know what I mean? It's, you have to have thick skin, and you have to really let people in. I'm pretty transparent. I don't hold anything back. And I think tough conversations are, you have to be able to take tough conversations. And I think the hardest part is being an administrator is when, somebody does call you out on your faults and you're like, okay, yeah, you're right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yep. A little self-reflection doesn't hurt anybody. But it's not a terrible job. It's not. There's more fun moments. Like middle schoolers are fun. Middle school teachers are fun. So
So you clearly have a lot of energy. I can just tell. So and this could be like, I'm wondering where you get this from. Do you drink a lot of caffeine? Do you like
no,
pound 5 hour energies? Like, what do you do to have all this energy because most, it's a Monday at 6:20 your time. I mean, just where does it come from?
I get that a lot. I do. And I think, and I, I said once to my assistant principal, I was like, can there be like adult onset ADHD? She's like, I don't know. I mean, I never got that as a kid. Like I never was one of those like jumping off the chair but I get a lot of like, from a lot of people, the word energy gets associated with me. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I don't
It's a
know. Where do I
compliment.
get my energy from? I think it's glass half full. Like I, I do a lot. Like I'm very good about self-care. Like I get up in the morning, I run, I walk my dog. I do something for me every single day. I think it's super important. I also stress that with my staff is I'm very quick to recognize, take time for you, but what can I do for you? The energy thing, life is short, like, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know where I get my energy from. I do drink caffeine. I do. I probably drink more than I should, but not a ton. I think I do 3 cups a day. That's not terrible.
So we're talking
Um,
coffee, right? Is that correct?
Coffee. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I think middle schoolers keep me young. I will say that. I think if I had to pick one reason why I have energy, you can't be slow on the job when you're dealing with adolescents. They're going to blow right by you.
So let's just talk real quick, specifics of your school. What grades do you have? Because I probably have done a not a great job of asking you about. Just describe your school a little bit more for me, if you don't mind.
Okay, so we are a suburban school, and we're outside of Springfield, Massachusetts. We're grades 6, 7, and 8, and currently we're just shy of 600 students. Our enrollment's gone down a little bit. So I think when I started there 5 years ago, we were maybe 740. So it's gone down a little bit. It's a working class.
Mhm.
It's more diverse than what I came from in Belchertown, which I love. And we have a huge Portuguese population. We have a huge Turkish population.
Oh,
It's we get a lot of school choice students from Springfield, so we get some inner city kids. I love the diversity, and I think
yeah.
that's what I love the most about Ludlow is the community is really, we have cliques. I mean, it's a middle school, but I don't see, and I don't think I'm blind to it, but I don't see the cliques like
Mhm. Mhm.
this mean group or this athletic group, or first of all, because I think I try really hard to make sure it doesn't happen. Um, and I think I love that I can learn from all these different cultures. I grew up in northern New York, and we were pretty vanilla. I mean, I say that like, so for me to be able to get exposed to all of these different cultures, it's like a little melting pot for me. I love it.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's good. And even my staff, the staff is, my oldest teacher is on his 54th year of teaching.
Wow.
Yes. And he
Oh,
is an absolute rock star. Um, he is handling this remote learning like a champ. He's got a system set up. Like I popped onto a Zoom today, and he's got his, what do they call 'em, blue light glasses on, and he's got
yeah.
his, MacBook Air set up, and then another
Sure.
computer set up. It's remarkable. 54 years, and the guy doesn't falter.
That's
And then
impressive.
I have, new staff, and they all just work together. I can't brag enough. First of all, I can't brag enough about any teacher right now in America, because what they have overcome has been nothing short of a miracle. I mean, I have a sister in education she's what, 33 years in, and just to listen to her stories is
Mhm.
it's remarkable. I mean, yeah, they just what I love the most about my staff is they never say no. They just jump in and they just do it. I mean, yeah, it's wild. Yeah.
So earlier, I briefly, we talked about you going for the doctorate. Currently, you're a doctoral student. Maybe just talk about that, how that's going, what prompted you to go after the doctorate, and maybe you mentioned a dissertation earlier. I didn't know if you had any thoughts on what that research might be on, or just share anything you want about the program.
So if all goes well, I'm in the end zone. So somewhere in a book somewhere, and I think I found it recently, I have written down that this is, me, senior year, 17 years old, down that I was going to have my doctorate by the time I turned 50. And I'm going to get it in just before I turn 50. So somebody was looking out for me. I debated. I was going to start right away when I started the principal position. And actually, it was my superintendent that said to me, "You're crazy not to pursue it. Like you've got the energy, you've got the love of learning. You should really pursue this." So I started it, and oh, here's the irony too. Can I back this up? And I've never said this publicly.
Back it up.
I
Back it up.
applied for the doctorate program at Arizona State, didn't get in.
Those jerks.
I love Arizona State. It was
That's the
such a good
moral of this
experience.
show. Do not go to ASU.
No, I love them. No, I have to say, I don't want to bash them because
All right.
I really love their educational program. But anyway, so I kind of took a moment, stepped back a little bit, and was like, okay, that's twice they've rejected me, and I graduated summa cum laude. Like, okay. So then I applied for another program at Endicott, and immediately got in, and I was like, okay, I'm in. And I know you've gone through it. It's a little bit of an adjustment. Actually a lot of an adjustment. I cried more tears that first semester than I think I've ever cried in my life. My two kids, I kept saying, I'm dropping out. And they said, no, you're not. You want this. Don't worry about us. You've got this. It's dedication. I mean, I'm up early, and I get up early anyway. And I like Saturday I got up, I was up at 6 and never stopped writing until 2. So I'm in dissertation. I'm collecting data. My dissertation topic is on middle school teachers' use of collaborative technology applications in order to engage students. That sounds like a big mouthful, but and ironically, I picked that topic well before COVID ever came into place. So now that COVID is here, it's what would we do without technology to engage students? So it's been interesting. I'm writing chapters 1 and 2. I just worked on my lit review over the weekend.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
oh,
never again, never
oh,
again. I'm
lit
going to be,
review. Oh, maybe you like that lit review. Whew.
no, nope, I don't, no. But it's going. And if all goes well, I will defend in April and I will graduate in May. So,
Wow, that's
but
great.
I have a big road ahead of me. This is the heavy lift right now.
Yeah. So is it qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods? Have you gotten into that yet?
It
Or
started out mixed methods. I think I have enough now to do straight quantitative.
okay.
Yes.
Everybody I did qualitative, but everybody I've talked to says stay away from mixed methods. Like you're only going to give yourself like a half years of extra work. So
I agree. I'm actually excited now that I think it can be strictly quantitative. I have a really
awesome.
good survey, and yeah, so far things. I just
Awesome.
sent out an email to this afternoon and said, thank you. You have a deadline. If you haven't completed the survey, you have until January 15th. So yes,
Oh gosh, that's a good feeling. So it's gonna feel great when you can put that doctor in front of your name. It'll just be
yes.
another. That's just so crazy at the age of 17 that you wrote that
Isn't
down.
that weird? It's weird.
Yeah, because you mentioned like you weren't exactly like blowing it away in high school. It didn't sound like
I
So
did okay in high school. I didn't do
okay,
so well in at the
okay,
community college.
okay,
My mother was very patient with me. Yes, yes.
okay.
But then I
Gotcha.
turned it around. I did okay.
All right. Well, cool. Well, hey, um, in case you're joining us late, this has been an awesome interview. I knew it would be. I'm with Stacy Monette, the principal at Paul Baird Middle School, and and what city is it in? Because I said it wrong earlier. What
It's in
city?
Ludlow. Ludlow.
Ludlow.
Ludlow.
Okay, in Ludlow, Massachusetts. So this is the time of the show we kind of shift gears, and the first half to 2/3 is always focused on leadership tips, education. I love for the last 20 minutes or so focusing in on personal growth. I think that's kind of what sets this podcast apart from a lot of other educational podcasts is we just dig into some like, okay, how, give us the tips. How have you gotten to this point? Like, let us just, cause obviously you're successful. You're doing all that. You're a runner. You're doing all these, you got kids at home, you're the principal of the year, like so many things going on. So we want to know, like, how do you do it all? So we always start off with the very first question is if we're we'll use Belchertown, I guess here. If we're in Belchertown or in your area, what is one place we just got to check out?
Okay.
And I know you're a local there, so sometimes it's kind of hard, like to pick one over others, but once one place, like you got to
I'm
go.
going to go out of the box here, and I'm not sure if I can do this, but I'm not like a huge go out to eat person. Well, for the one reason that like when you're in town, I don't go to the grocery store a lot. It's just awkward for me. I know it's one of those weird things. It's kind of in my area, but if I can say this, it's a brewery.
You can
It is.
say it. We've talked
Okay.
all kinds of different topics on this show. You're good.
So if you're going to visit one place, and I just love the story behind this brewery. It's Treehouse Brewery, and it used to be in the neighboring town. And it's three guys who got together. I think they were if the story is correct, they were best friends in high school. They started making their own beer in the garage. Somebody came over for a Christmas party. I hope I have this story, and I hope they watch this too. They drink the beer, and they're like, hey, how, what's going, I like a good beer. I don't have a problem, but my one occasional, this brewery has taken off to the point of like, it's an amazing, so they moved it into another area. Actually, when the night before COVID hit, before the date of March 13th, my instructional leadership team, not my instructional leadership team, my women in leadership group, we met. Our meeting was at the Treehouse Brewery. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. You can bring your dog, you can bring your kids. It's outside. There's big gazebos. Their beer is nationally, I think it's world renowned. Like we went to Ireland a couple of years ago, and people there were like, hey, do you know Treehouse Brewery? And we're like, we're in Ireland. Yeah, it's that well known. It's one of those that if you are here, like wherever we go, they say, do you live near Treehouse Brewery? And I just love the story because the guys are very like down to earth, and they are very humble and are very successful now because of this beer. I hope you're Googling Treehouse Brewery.
Well, here's the funny thing. I tried to Google it. I think it's blocked on my school network.
Oh, it probably is.
I'm like, maybe my internet's not working. No, I'm pretty sure it's blocked. So either way, I will, it looks.
You know what's fascinating to me is that they made this beer in a kit in their garage. And now when you go there now, it looks like a science experiment. They have this system down. Like the rumor is like, Sam Adams Corporation went in and offered them, money, and you hear all these things. I'm just so happy that these are like hometown guys who just are doing what they love. They're
awesome.
Doing something that they love, and they're successful at it. They've made this beautiful place for people to go visit. And yes.
Awesome. Well, hey, we've covered many topics on this show. So
People are going to be like, Stacy, that's the only thing you can think of. No, there's really good sushi places here too. So let me put a little plug in for that.
Okay.
I do a lot of sushi.
All right. Hey, next question is, what is one up to $50 purchase you've made in the last year that has made your life easier?
Okay. I'm giving you all my deep, dark secrets right now. I'm not a terrible cook. I just have no patience for it. Maybe it's because I'm moving on to the next thing all the time. And I bought an air fryer that I'm obsessed with. It might have been a little over, but Peter DeWitt's was over $50 too, if I remember that correctly. I bought an air fryer that I have to say I couldn't live without. You talk about an experiment. I put whatever I can in there and everything. My kids are amazed. Like we had salmon the other night. That was like unbelievable in the air fryer. So I would highly recommend air fryers for anybody who does not like to cook.
So I always try to get specifics. And I know nothing about air fryers. Is there a specific brand? Is there anything I don't know. Any other
I
specifics you can give people?
I wouldn't say brand. I would say don't go small because you're going to love it so much. You want the biggest one they make. It's sort of like a crock pot. Don't go small with a crock pot. Buy a
Okay.
big crock pot because I'm a crock pot fan too. That's the only way I cook. I don't know how to use my oven. I'll be honest. I don't know if I've turned my oven on in 6 months. Um,
Okay.
but but the air fryer, the bigger the better. It is amazing and it cooks like my son and I even put like cookie dough in there one night. We made cookies.
Wow, really?
Seriously.
Huh.
Yes,
Okay.
I
Oh
know.
yeah,
I
I
just shared
Google
that
search.
story.
I can get to this one because Google best air fryers. That one allows me. But yeah, there's all kinds of options out there. It looks like so.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Yeah, you
Yes.
might have been above that $50, but we'll let it
Oh,
slide.
maybe. No, it depends on where you get them. I think the
Okay,
the very
okay.
first the very first one I bought was at like like a I don't want to say like a General
No,
Dollar or one of those
I
stores,
take it
but
back. The more I dig, I'm looking at the Elite Platinum. I take it back.
oh,
I take that comment back. You're right. I think
okay.
we're right in that range. Okay, so next one is, what is one book that has greatly influenced your life?
One book that is greatly um okay, so there's one I'm reading now, but there's one like I do a lot of the life's daily instructions and I have that book and I've had it on my nightstand for years. For years that sometimes I'm really into one of those like when I feel like your mind's going in a negative place, you just kind of read. The one I just started reading now that I think is going to influence my year is Deep Happiness, Deep Kindness. Have you heard about Deep Kindness?
No.
Do you know do you know Houston Craft?
Oh gosh, I know that name, but
So
I
Houston Craft is from the character Strong, and
uh,
I had the pleasure of actually hanging with him twice. Once was at the National Principals Conference, and he when I and then I ended up going to one of his conferences in Burlington, Mass, which is just outside of Boston. And on the way home, I'll never forget. I get in my car and I call my son and I said, "This guy makes me want to leap off tall buildings." And my son was like, "Please don't do that." And I was like, "No, no, no!" Like, so he just wrote a book. I believe it got picked up by Oprah Winfrey. Um, he's not very old. He is so motivating and he just focuses on kindness. And it's just, he's got lots of resources out there. His company does a lot of things, Character Strong. I've tried to emulate some of them. They have these character dares that sometimes I do with the staff and sometimes I do with students, but he's pretty he's pretty profound. Even if you Google him, just if you ever get to see him in person, he just has that gift. Like he just gets it. He
hmm.
he just gets what it's like to just be kind. And his whole focus is like just show kindness. So that's going to be my game changer for this year, I think.
Awesome. Okay, the next question is, what you're the first guest I'm going to ask this question to. I came up with it. I wanted to just add a new question. So,
Okay.
and I hopefully you had a chance. I sent you the questions ahead of time. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. But
I did.
what is one phone app that has positively impacted your life?
I did see this one. And I guess these are more of like personal things. The first one that I thought of is like the mobile app, my bank mobile app. But now having two teenage children, the one that I can't live out without is Venmo.
Okay,
Um,
so a lot of people know Venmo, but some people don't. Just tell us
so,
how
I
it
have a daughter in
works and
college. I have a daughter in college, and actually, I just told you my son got his license today, and his big outing was to go to the McDonald's drive-through in between classes and get himself lunch, and then immediately walks in the door and says, "Can you Venmo me $10 for lunch?" My daughter just ordered some books at college today and says, "Can you Venmo me whatever, however much it was for?" My sisters love that I now have Venmo because I'm a terrible, terrible person about putting something in the mail. Again, I just can't be bothered. But to hit an app and send money right away, I haven't been late on, donating for flowers for mom in years because of Venmo. So it's a huge app. So Venmo is like, I don't even know. It's like a money transfer app.
mhm,
I even paid
mhm.
my nail salon lady with in Venmo now. Like everybody uses it. I don't know. How do you
See,
describe it? Do you use Venmo?
Well, it's so ironic. Here in the Midwest, we're so far behind. Like, yes, I know Venmo. Yes, I use Venmo. But you'd be surprised how few people here in Iowa, at least, use Venmo or anything Square, PayPal. It's like we're trying to get money together for I hope he's not listening. For our athletic director just had a baby. We're getting a gift together for him, and all the admins are like trying to get checks to each other and cash. And I'm just like, oh, if we just had Venmo, this would be so easy. So no, you East Coasters, West Coasters, like we're always jealous of all that. And you've probably had Venmo for like 5 years, and we still here in
No,
Iowa.
not 5 years. Actually, it was my nephews, I think, who got me onto it, and it took a while to catch on. But then once my kids got onto it, and then my sisters, it's just so convenient. I mean, it's
Super
just
convenient.
super convenient. Yeah, and no more. I haven't written a check. I can't remember the last time I wrote a check. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're behind here a little bit.
Oh,
There's,
that's sad.
pros and cons to that, but we still have a lot of check writers around here, unfortunately. But okay, so I'm really curious on this. You run, yeah, I just noticed on your Twitter you've got like 100 tags from races you've run in, it looks like. But do you eat healthy? And what is one healthy eating tip you can share with listeners?
Good, good, good. Because my downfall is we have this table outside of our office where people in education love food, and I have to say that is one thing that I can do for my staff. That during the COVID thing, we had a pizza party. Sometimes the Costco used to make these cakes that were like huge, and I bring those in. So that's kind of my downfall, and I have to limit that. I'm a big intermittent fasting. I don't know. I do intermittent fasting, and it's worked for me. I push the protein. I do. I try to stress low carb as much as I can. I think that is part of trying to just keep up with middle schoolers. Is you just yeah, the running for me is more therapeutic. Honestly, like that is my I get some of my best ideas for like professional development and for staff. Like when I'm running, I think of all these things and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I can do. But I think eating wise, the intermittent fasting, and especially for people in education, that it kind of started out. I had a girlfriend that was really into it, and she's like, you should try it. And a couple of days, I'm thinking, you're so busy that I mean, there's a lot of administrators. A day goes by, and you're like, I didn't eat lunch, I didn't eat breakfast, and then when I realized, like, I'm not even hungry. Um, so I just shortened that window, and yeah, it's a little hard because I'm also not like a big dinner person either. So yeah, I kind of have weird eating habits. I do.
So let's just, if you don't mind, share just a little bit more about intermittent fasting. Like,
So
because
intermittent fasting is the best way I can describe it is I read a book, Delay Don't Deny, and actually it's by Jen Stevens, and she used to be a teacher, I believe. Super good book, explains what intermittent fasting is, and basically the word breakfast means to break your fast. And I think as a society, we always thought breakfast was first meal in the morning. The minute your feet hit the ground, you're eating breakfast, and it's really not. It's when you break your fast, and it's when you're hungry enough to break your fast. And the whole point of intermittent fasting is you shorten your window, and your body lets you know when you're hungry. So like for me, my window tends to be, I don't eat usually before 11 in the morning. And I'm usually locked down. I say locked down. I've never been a night eater. I'm not a snacker, but I'm locked down about 5 or 6, and then you're done. So it's like a small window, and yeah, you don't really, yeah, you just, so basically you knock out one meal. Like you walk automatically knock out calories. I would highly recommend some people to try it. It's super easy. It's made a huge difference with me. Even with the running, like I always thought I had to have like this big huge load up carb meal before I run. No, like I can go out and run 5 miles, and I don't eat anything before it. Yeah, your body just adjusts to it. I think it's been almost 2 years I've done it. Yeah.
wow. So, okay, and there's a lot of people who listen who, again, you can throw COVID's made things weird, but like
Oh, weird.
5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. Do you do the intermittent fasting leading up to those races, or do you do something different? What's your pre-race routine?
So So before COVID, um, I wasn't well. I always had a routine. Like I do weird things. Like before a marathon, or a half marathon, I would eat chicken parm. That was always
Oh,
my go-to lucky meal. I eat
like the
chicken
night
parm
before?
the night before. Yeah, the night before I'd eat chicken.
Not like half an hour before the race.
Yeah, no. Big meal, chicken parm. No. And then, like I'd have a bagel and so if you're doing a race, obviously, my goal before COVID was every semester of the doctoral program, I did a half marathon, and I was on track, did a half marathon every semester until COVID hit, and then they canceled all the races. So I haven't really trained too hard. Now the running it during COVID has been more therapeutic. I mean, I'm doing it just to get outside and get my brain going. And so I don't know if I would fast before a race. I don't know if I'm that daring, because your nutrition has to be done, especially in a marathon. You're screwing that up. You're in danger. So
When you
yeah.
do your morning runs, I always like asking this. Do you run with headphones, without headphones, music, podcasts? What do you usually do?
So it's interesting you say that, because in the morning when it's dark, I never run with headphones on. And for years and years and years and years, I never ran with music ever. Um, and since COVID, if I run in the afternoon, like I went out yesterday and I ran, and I always put one in now, but I'm kind of new to the headphones. Like I have the AirPods. Um, the only problem is I like getting inside my head, and if I'm listening to music, it doesn't allow me to get inside my head. So I'm not a huge fan of running with music. However, I love Taylor Swift and her new albums, I'll have to be honest. So I plugged my Taylor Swift in and I took off for my run yesterday, and yeah, yeah.
One more question. AirPods. I've heard varying reports if those if they stay there for runners. Do your AirPods stay pretty good for you, or do you feel like they kind of bounce around a little bit?
So I haven't had any problem. It's funny too, that you just say this, because my office just bought me the new AirPod Pros,
Yeah, yep.
and they like, you can't hear anything. They like lock into your ears. The other ones weren't terrible. I've never had them fall out, and I've run with both, but the new AirPod Pros are pretty legit. Like they're noise blocking. It's kind of weird to me. I'm not sure if I like them, which surprises me, because I don't like not being able to hear everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me. People, those are like the types of little like, okay, have you had these headphones? Do they work? Do you like them? That's this type of stuff that we try to
Don't
dig
ask me
into.
my fastest mile, because after Peter DeWitt's
Oh,
last,
you
he
can't
must
run
have been,
a 4:30 or whatever it was.
I think he said 4:31. I'm
I
like,
think so too.
no.
Okay, we'll stay away from that
Yeah,
then.
please don't ask me that.
Okay, so just changing it up slightly, can you recall a job you applied for and did not get? And if so, what did you learn from this experience?
So this one is again, probably not a lot of people know this. So I have a house at the Cape, and I love Cape Cod. I do. It's my love. It's where I go every weekend. Um, and so last year, I applied for a middle school position there and became a finalist. And it was in the middle of COVID. COVID had just hit, and I didn't get it. They gave it to the current assistant principal, and then about a week later, I got principal of the year, and it just
Wow.
wasn't meant to be. It just,
Yeah.
in hindsight, it felt so right at the time. And after I got principal of the year, I thought, I can't leave. These people right here in this building are what got me, principal of the year. And I just think,
Huh.
yeah, thank God it didn't happen. Like how terrible would that have been? Like, hey, thanks, principal of the year, and I'm out, I'm leaving. So blessing in disguise. It really was. And I remember my daughter saying to me, "You don't seem real upset that you didn't get it." And at the time I was like, you know what, it's, things happen for a reason. I didn't get it. And then a week later, I think it was about a week later, I got principal of the year. So
Huh.
yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that. Sometimes those aren't, you don't know who knows what jobs people go for. And I'm just thinking about those engagement rings. What would people have done with those? Would they be like, forget this?
I have one teacher who put
Yeah.
them all on a bracelet. She
Oh,
has them all on a
geez.
bracelet. So yeah, you got to give me your address. I'll send you all my
Okay.
tokens.
All right. I might have to do that then. The 1 carat, faux, ring there. So
And please tweet it out.
okay. Okay. So we talked about the dissertation. But the question is, maybe besides the dissertation, what is one big goal you're currently working on? Or maybe that's it. I'll let you go from there.
So everybody, you get this award, this principal of the year, and you're going for your doctor, and everybody's always, and I just had this conversation with one of my friends who's a superintendent, and they're always like, you ready for central office? You ready to go for central office? And I just had the conversation actually this afternoon with one of my friends. And I'm not, I love the pulse of a building, and I love being around kids. I do. I feel like the further you go up, and I was really worried from moving from assistant principal to principal, because people kept saying, you're going to be away from the kids. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to be that kind of principal. And I'm not. Like, I'm not principal that when parents say, you probably don't know my daughter because she's a really good kid. And I go, oh, no, actually, I know your daughter because she's a really good kid. So, you get those conversations. I just had the opportunity to teach a class, an adjunct class, and it was a personalized learning, actually for Endicott. And I loved it. And I thought, this is what I want to do with my doctorate. I want to teach teachers. I was so encouraged to see what's coming up through, because I keep thinking, are we going to be able to recruit teachers? Who wants to go into this profession? And, you hear about it like, oh, why would I want to do that? And just to see how talented some of these people were in this class, like all of them, I have to say all of them, the material they were turning in, and just the discussions we were having. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do with my doctoral degree. I'm going to teach, because I think I do miss teaching. I don't know if I could walk back into a middle school special ed classroom, but I can teach teachers how to teach a middle school special ed classroom. So
Sure.
That's my big goal right now, is
That's
kind of
awesome.
figuring out. I'm hoping they let me teach another class. So
Huh. Very,
yeah.
very cool. Well, hey, I'm at the end of my questions. This flew by, I feel like, on my end.
This was fun. This was
Good.
probably the most fun I've had. So thank you.
Good. Well, like I said, Peter and I talked last week. We try to mix things up a little bit, try to give listeners something a little bit different to listen to. Unlike Peter, I'm guessing I'm not holding you from dinner,
No,
like I did
no.
last.
I know. I
So,
heard him say that. I was like,
well, that's good. So, hey, is there anything else? We've covered a lot, but is there anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to make sure we shared or that you talked about?
I'm looking at I did a little cheat sheet here, which I never ever do. No, I guess my big thing is just like, I worry that we're going to not keep people in the educational field. And as much as I can say, share your story, and it's not all bad. And, just, I love my job. I'm very quick to say I love my job. And even on the days where it's tough, I still love my job. Today I am working from home, and I got to pop in and out of different Zooms, and I'm in one class with a group of 7th graders. And I was like, hey, just so you guys know, I'm going to tap a few of you, because I want to know, I'm hearing you guys really like the schedule. And they're like, uh-huh. And I was like, so when we start talking about scheduling for next year, I want to hear some thoughts. And they're like, okay, great. I get to have conversations with these kids. My own two, I didn't love middle school. Like I couldn't wait to get my own two through middle school. But the fact that I can kind of pick these brains of these kids, and
Mhm.
I've been able to watch, there's some silver linings to this pandemic, and
Mhm.
some things we're going to change that we never would have changed in education. And that makes me so excited, that I keep saying that to my staff, is there's going to be more good things that come of this than not. And I think we need to just keep that focus on the positive, and know that what they've maneuvered with the technology. And, it's weird, because we never in a million years, a year ago, would we have guessed that my teachers would be teaching from their living rooms, or that when I got onto a Zoom today, I'm seeing every single 7th grader's bedroom. Like, you never would, you know what I mean? But I think it's made people so much more real. And I
Mhm.
think that's where I feel like, as a principal, I'm as real as it's going to get. Like, I don't hide a lot of things. So yeah, I guess that's. Keep it
It's
real.
good.
If I can say that's my last, keep it real.
Well, that's a good way to end there. Where, we talked about Twitter a number of times. But if somebody else wanted to reach out to you or pick your brain on a couple of the ideas that you're doing, where would you have them go?
They can email me. And Twitter, the messages on Twitter is probably the quickest. If they just inbox me, that's how you found me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. My email, they can email me. The one thing about all of this is you're out there on social media. Like everybody kind of knows my story now, which is
Sure.
it's a little strange.
Yeah.
Um, but if they Google, there's probably Twitter's the easiest way.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, one more time, Stacy Monette, soon to be Dr. Stacy Monette,
Crossing my fingers.
here soon, here in the next few months. This is episode 45. I say this a lot of different episodes. We're getting some serious momentum here recently, thanks to some of the guests like Stacy. If you like what you've heard, I just ask you if you could scroll down to the bottom of your Apple Podcasts or Spotify and give us a 5-star review if you like what you've heard. If you, I don't know how you could not be impressed with what Stacy had to share. I guess you can give us a 1 or 2 stars if you think it was that bad, but I think it was pretty good there. So again, that helps
Might be
us
some former middle school students.
yeah, she gave me detention. We're going to forget that. But no, it helps. A lot of educators are starting to hear about the show. So it just really helps out, and make sure you also press subscribe. We really appreciate that. So Stacy, I'm going to let you get going there. Enjoy your night. I don't know if you're going to Treehouse Brewery or not, but
I said that.
I'm just joking.
No, it's an hour from my house. It's an hour from my house.
Okay.
And honestly, I've only been there a handful of times. So I want to put that out there right now.
Hey, if you're listening, I'm just joking. I don't want to put words in her mouth there, but I appreciate your time. No wonder the staff and the kids love you. No, you're just full of energy and gave some great answers. I really appreciate it. So
this was super fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I needed
absolutely.
This boosts me. So I needed this. Thank you.
All right. Well, you have a good night and have a good start to 2021. All right.
You too. Thanks a lot.